Hi, everyone. This is Teresa Aker, and you're with Success Diaries. We're doing part two with the wonderful, beautiful Vanessa Cardenas, who is a relationship reset expert since 2017. Vanessa, how are you?
Oh, I'm great, Teresa. Thank you so much for having me. And for part two, oh, we left off with a cliffhanger, didn't we?
We did. And you were about to tell us about our shadow and a story that happened to you when you were young, and I want to continue on there. So I'm going to start with you. You go ahead.
Well, we left off with a wicked inner critic, my
We did.
shadow. For me, it started in kindergarten, actually, the very first day of kindergarten. Oh, I was so excited. I was so excited to go to school because I had a secret, something I had practiced all summer long, and I couldn't wait to share it with the class. And sure enough, our teacher, Mrs. Feynman, I still remember her name 50 years later, she started calling on every single student to stand up and recite the alphabet and their numbers. And she started at the beginning of the alphabet. Well, not for nothing, my name is Vanessa, so I knew I was at the end of the alphabet, but I still was so excited. I couldn't wait. And she called on Thomas, and Thomas stood up and fumbled his way through the alphabet. And I knew my turn was next because no one has a name with a U. It was going to be my turn. My turn was going to be next. And sure enough, she called on Ursula. So I had to wait my turn. And finally, it was my turn. And I jumped up and I started to recite the alphabet backwards. I was so proud of myself.
I bet.
When I finished, I stood there waiting for her to say something. And she took her finger, put it in my face, and told me I was a smart ass
Oh,
and to go stand in the corner. I shuffled my way to the corner, hearing all of the other children laughing at me. And that's when I heard her for the first time.
yeah.
No one cares what you have to say. You'll never be good enough. Don't bother talking. No one cares. That was the birth of my inner critic. And she followed me for a long time.
Mm.
I was quiet in school. I didn't say anything. Anytime I was called on, oh, she was right there on my shoulder. Don't say anything. Don't say anything. Mumble your way through. Nobody cares what you have to say, so don't bother. So much so that my teachers used to write on my report cards that I was shy. And my single parent mother went into school and said, no, my daughter's not shy. What's going on here? And they had to pull me out of that situation where I found myself not wanting to talk, just not wanting to talk. And that followed me through middle school, through high school, through college. And then she settled down. I have to admit, she hibernated until that faithful day in Central Park with my husband, which we talked about in part one. And
Right.
she came out guns blazing. Oh, she blamed me for all of it. I wasn't a good wife. I wasn't a good mother.
Wow.
This, I deserved this. This was my fault. I took that all on. And I had to go through a lot of coaching and a lot of therapy to tap down my wicked inner critic. I had to learn a lot of techniques that still help me to this day. Because what had happened was that my inner critic, she silenced my intuition and my gut. And those three things, they work in tandem together. Now they do, absolutely. Every once in a while, my wicked inner critic, she'll come out, she'll have something to say to me. And now I have a technique that I use. I appreciate you, but I've got this. I can handle this.
Yeah.
Because if I let her have free reign, oh boy, it gets dark quickly. I don't want that. And I don't want that for my clients. And I work with my clients because I can see it. I can see when they have that wicked inner critic that's just beating them down to the point where they can't even function. And how they talk about themselves, you hear it. And oh, That's one thing that I am so grateful for with my mentors, with my coaches, that helped me release myself and not be chained to my inner critic. Because, oh boy, she can do a lot of damage. She can absolutely do a lot of damage.
Vanessa, I think everyone has that. We were talking before. When I was in school, I had a teacher that I was in grade two, and I remember saying to her, I just loved her. I just adored her. And I looked up, and she had blonde hair too. I like that she had blonde hair because you kind of relate to people when you're young. And I said to her, when I grow up, I want to be a teacher like you. And you know what? She said right away came back with, oh, you don't want to do that. It's a cyclical career. You may not have a job then. And I remember feeling crushed and thinking, oh, I can't do this. And I wasn't good enough to be a teacher. I didn't understand in grade two what is cyclical. I just thought all I heard, same as you, you're not good enough. You're never going to be a teacher. You're never going to mount to that. And I never went into teaching. Now, ironically, I do teach motivational speaking. I teach, how to empower yourself, how to grow a business. I do everything but teach in a classroom because that's what I wanted to do. And that has always in the back of my mind. I remember that. And you almost sabotage yourself, don't you? And I think sometimes because we all have that inner critic, that's why marriages have those little cracks because someone challenges you in the simplest way. It might be as simple as you didn't do the dishes or, why can't you just do this or whatever it is, something minute that they don't mean it critically, but your critic goes, see, you're not good enough. And that's where the cracks start in a marriage, I think. Anyway, that's just my opinion. But as we go through life, we have to be able to deal with ourselves and those you're very good. You could shadow or whatever and just say, you got to handle it. You got to be able to talk about it, talk through it, and learn how to quiet it.
Absolutely. For me, especially for couples in crisis, I usually say that there's four people in their relationship because it's the two of them and their inner critics.
And
And
maybe more.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. It depends on how many you have. I like to lump them into
Yeah.
all one. But one of the techniques that I learned early on that has been extremely helpful for me and for several of my clients because it's a visual that they can see, and I'm a visual learner. So I refer to the inner critic. My inner critic is nasty chick voice. But with that being said, your inner critic, think of it like a gremlin, a little itty bitty figure that sits in the corner holding a flashlight and turns on the flashlight and generates this shadow behind them that is huge, huge shadow, making them appear so much bigger than they actually are.
That's good.
And when you feel that or sense that gremlin, that inner critic starting to go after you, turn off the flashlight. Turn off the flashlight. Get them back to their original size. They're this small. They're this small, and you can handle anything. They don't have to handle it for you, and they don't have to tell you that you're not good enough because you are. You're uniquely beautiful just as you are. You might not know everything. We all don't. But you don't know what you don't know. But you do know what you do know. And you do know that that inner critic, while you might feel like it's protecting you and allowing for you to have all those feelings, but what it's doing is it's keeping you small. And you're not small. You are not the same size as that gremlin. Oh, no, not at all. You don't need that flashlight to project you onto that back wall. Not at all. You are amazing just as you are. So let it out. And when that critic goes after you, turn off the flashlight. Turn off the flashlight. And for me, that was a great visual because I remind myself often at times that turn off the flashlight. I've got this. I'm okay. I've got this. I appreciate you attempting to protect me, and keep me safe, but you're keeping me small. And I don't want to be small. I
Yeah.
absolutely don't want to be small.
So you went through some turmoil in your marriage and you were able to stay with your husband, which is amazing. And that's really good. And you're now helping other relationships with that. When you're doing that, but obviously both have their own critics, their own inner critic. Do you recognize it when they start the conversations in the, okay, so that's what I thought. But you're now you do one-on-one coaching. So do you help them kind of bring that out? Do you recognize it and say, just kind of say to them, okay, I recognize that critic. I recognize that. And you're able to help them with some other techniques as well?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I ask for an introduction from my inner critic to their inner critic, and that usually generates a smile
Oh,
because they're
yeah.
like, "Oh, you've got one too." And you're right, Teresa. Everyone has one.
Oh,
Just
for
depends
sure.
on how big they are and how big that flashlight is that they're holding. And we can, when we are aware of something, it makes it manageable. When we have so much fear that we can't even think straight, yeah, that's when we get into trouble. And that's why we need clarity. And clarity comes from stability. And stability comes from awareness. If we can put language to how we are feeling and what's happening within this beautiful ecosystem that we have, which is our body, that we don't treat our body as if it's a coffin for all of these emotions, we can get through anything. We absolutely can, especially when we have guidance. And guidance through mentorship, through coaching, through therapy, through counseling, whatever it is monumental. It's priceless. I would give anything back when I was going through my betrayal. I would give anything to feel better, to have that guidance, to know that somebody else has walked this path and can shine the flashlight out instead of onto, but out and say, here's several different paths that you can take.
Right. I think too, Vanessa, with that, people, okay, so people have everyday lives. So they have family, they have jobs, they have careers, they have uh, hobbies, they have things they have to deal with, they have pressures, they have all kinds of things they deal with, children perhaps, family, relationships, friends, whatever they're going through. So they deal with all of those things under regular everyday life. My thought is that kind of plays in the background many, many times throughout the day. So this is my thought. So as they come to you, that's great. But if they don't come to you or come to a coach prior to that, I think that's where relationships, and which is what we've been talking about, we're not as forgiving because that critic kind of attacks us and then blames the other person. And really, half the arguments, and we all know this because we're all adults, half the arguments we have don't even have anything to do with the other person, do they? I mean, and again, I'm not a counselor, but even I know that. So
Right.
most of the time, it's that deep stuff that comes up that you snap at someone, you think, why did I do that? You know, you didn't mean to snap at them, but you do. Or you say something critical and you think, why was I so hard on them? Even your children or whatever, it doesn't have to be marriage even. So how does someone recognize as they go, or let's say they do recognize it, how do they kind of learn to deal with it in discussions without letting it get out of control? Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Mhm. Absolutely makes
So let's
sense.
say I'm having an argument with my spouse or my child or whatever, and that all comes up. Even I know the demons are there, and I know when they're having a bad day and it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with me. How do you sort of de-escalate a conversation, if you will, to stop that?
It starts with, first of all, definitely awareness. So you've
Okay.
already spoken about
Sure.
awareness. You know that what you've said has been hurtful or
Yeah.
whatever it might be. It's acknowledging that to the other person. It's great that within your own mind you're thinking, "Oh yeah, no, that didn't come out right. That was awful. I feel bad that
Mhm.
I said that," and whatnot. It's actually saying it out loud to the
Yeah, that's
person
a
that
good
you
point.
have inflicted this onto, so that they see that you have a great sense of self-awareness and you recognize that what you have said hurts. I mean, I was never a fan of, sticks and stones may break your bones, but words will never
Oh,
hurt.
they
Oh
certainly
no,
do.
quite the opposite. Quite the opposite.
I agree.
Those words cut deep. Look at the two of us. We remember almost verbatim, word for word,
We
what
do.
our grade school teachers told us,
I
said
can
to us.
remember her smell. Can you believe it? That's how in tuned our senses are, right? That's how
Absolutely.
traumatic that moment was for me. And I'm
Correct.
sure for you too.
Absolutely. Because feelings are the glue that hold the memory. How we felt in that moment stays with us. It becomes glue, it becomes cement. And that memory is locked into place. We can remember so much detail related to it because we have played it over in our mind over and over and over and over again. It is the movie that we have seen hundreds of thousands of times.
And then when you have that neural pathway kind of guiding you, you look for other things that actually coincide with the same feeling, don't you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then you reinforce it. You
That's correct.
reinforce that feeling. And
And
that
there's that
feeling just
see again, see,
mhm,
right?
mhm.
Yeah, I know. I agree with you. Vanessa, well said. Well done. Now, I know you definitely did a lot of research with your coaching and counseling. Do you happen to have a book? And I didn't know. I should have asked you that before. Do you have a book?
Yes, I was encouraged to write a book.
And what's the name of your book?
The name of my book is Dealing with the Devastation of Your Partner's Betrayal: What to Do When Your World Falls Apart. It was not written for academic or scientific or commercial success. Not at all. Not at all. It was the guidebook that I needed because when I went through betrayal, I grasped everything that I could get my hands on. And unfortunately, when you go through something very traumatic, your ability to comprehend anything is very diminished. You're searching for, I need these bite-sized pieces to kind of understand why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling, what is exactly going on, and what should I do moving forward. So I designed my book very specifically. It's really short chapters. They're probably at least 2 pages at max long. And they just bullet points of what you need to be on the lookout for, recognizing certain things. It's not filled with scientific jargon or religious jargon. There is absolutely no blame, no blame, no
Right.
shame, no guilt built into it at all. And every single chapter ends with a journal prompt
Oh,
so
nice.
that when you read it, hopefully in bed right before you go to sleep, there's something that happened that day. And again, the chapters, you don't read it like a normal book. You thumb through it. It's a resource book for you. So if you
Right.
have you got really triggered that day and you want to understand why you're feeling the way you are, you flip to the trigger chapter. I think it's chapter 16. And at the end of the chapter, it has a journal prompt so that your mind, hopefully the last thing that you're churning over in your mind over and over again, is that journal prompt. It's designed for you to think about the situation a little differently rather than ruminating on it into the negative, to be able to see your strength and
Right.
who you are. So I wrote that book, very, very proud of it. I received a lot of feedback on it personally, not through Amazon and all the various channels that it's on, because nobody's going to write a review putting their name on it to say, hey, I was betrayed. It doesn't quite happen that way.
Right.
But
Right.
with that being said, a lot of the feedback that I got was I need to know how to talk to my kids and my parents and my
Oh,
in-laws.
okay.
I don't know what to tell them. I don't know what to share or what not to share. And that led to my second book, which was How to Deal with Your Partner's Betrayal: How to Talk to Your Kids, Your Parents, Your In-laws, Your Friends, Your Family, Your Colleagues. Because all those conversations are very different, even with your kids. How you explain what's happening in your relationship to your 5-year-old who thinks that they are the reason why
Yeah.
mommy and daddy are yelling at each other, is different than their teenagers that, you know, like, I don't want to be involved. I don't want to know anything kind of thing, to your adult children who have their own
Yeah.
relationships,
Yeah.
to your in-laws, very carefully, to your parents, very carefully, your sisters, your brothers, everybody, those types of conversations, because those conversations need to empower you, not bring you down. Absolutely not bring you down, because you're already faced with a lot of judgment, self judgment. You are already judging yourself. Having others start to judge you, that becomes very difficult. And if you have a larger social circle, you will find that people will completely either embrace you, or they will be so far away from you as if you have a the plague. They will scatter, because whatever you're going through, they don't want splattered on them.
Right. Right.
And
Right.
suddenly people disappear. And we need to understand that that is not about us. It is not about us. It
Right.
is their reaction
Right.
to your situation.
Right. And their inner critic and their inner defense mechanism. And maybe
Absolutely.
they're going through things you don't know, right?
Exactly.
I mean, we just scratch the surface of it, someone's life, and there's something underneath there, right? We all put our best face forward. So, I mean, that's the most important to understand. What you're dealing with in the other person isn't necessarily what you think you're dealing with. Not that they're bad people, but most people have stuff, right?
Mhm.
So we're not necessarily going to know what that stuff is. So you don't know how they're going to react and how they're going to deal with it. I would also say, Vanessa, when you have marital issues, it is best to, I mean, if you have a best friend that you can trust more than life itself, or someone you can definitely as a confidant do it, I think it's important to see someone professionally for that reason. You don't want to, now you're bringing outside sources and judgment and criticism, and it's just going to add more fuel to the fire, if you will. I think that's an important part. So, and as you said, once you change the dynamic, now you're dealing with perhaps losing friendships and losing family because of the situation. Would that be fair?
That's absolutely fair. The metaphor that I use is the toothpaste, because once you let it out of the tube, you cannot get it back in.
It's true. It's true. And
It
now
absolutely is.
and people will judge. Unfortunately, that's what happens.
Absolutely, because you're right. They have their own things going on in their own life, and they find themselves struggling with the magnitude of what's happening with you.
Yeah.
And some embrace it, and others just deflect it as far as they can. And that, in your very vulnerable state, is crushing. And that's one of the reasons why I strongly encourage that any help that you source, that you vet properly, because you are in such a vulnerable state, whether that's grief, or you're just feeling overwhelmed and you want a reprieve from everything. You want to source, you want to properly vet whoever you bring into your inner sanctum, because unfortunately, people prey on the vulnerable. They do. So you want to make sure that you properly vet. You ask. Sometimes that's asking clergy, pastor, minister, asking anonymously in Facebook groups. That was probably the best thing that Facebook has done for
Yeah.
groups, is allow the opportunity for an anonymous post to be able to say, who do you recommend? And just because it's recommended doesn't mean you like, oh, okay, good. No, you do your own proper vetting. These days, there's such a massive digital footprint. My digital footprint is massive. You can find me pretty much everywhere. You
Yeah.
can get a sense of who I am. That's one of the reasons why I do podcasts, so that we can have these conversations, so that you can hear points of view on that, and allow for that opportunity to connect, because you want to connect, because you are in a very vulnerable state.
Mm.
It's only temporary. It's not forever. You are not going to feel like this forever.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
will work your way through. You're not going to work your way around it. You might try, but
Yeah.
it's going to stay there. You have to work your way through the challenges that you have in your life
Yeah,
because
exactly.
those become your milestones. Those become your markers in your life that you can turn around and you can look back and you can tell that second grade teacher, you know what? I might not have been a teacher, but now I teach.
Exactly. Exactly. That's true. I
Hmm.
have a little bit of a harder question for you.
Hmm.
Now you're together with your husband. You've overcome everything. You're now a wonderful coach. You're guiding people for the future, for the future.
Hmm.
How are you keeping that marriage to the point that you never have to worry again? And I know that's an issue for some people in the back of their mind. It's there. It's a hard question, but it's a fair question because I'm just asking for our audience. How do you go forward after you've repaired it and know you're confident again?
Because I know what I know. I can I would like to think that I can see it in advance of. I'm
Okay.
also very cautious. Um, you mentioned the word never. Um, I don't I don't have absolutes. I don't predict and I don't look into the future that it'll never happen again. I don't want it to happen again.
I
I want to
suspect it
prevent,
won't.
right. Yeah. I want to prevent it if I
Yeah.
can. I want to be open to opportunities that if I feel something slightly off, I ask. I also remain open to actually listening when my husband says something and not think for him. Because when you're in a long term relationship, and a long term is subjective, long term could be a couple of months because you've never had a relationship that's a couple of months, or
Yeah.
a couple of years, or a couple of decades. So it's all relative. But we get to a point where we're very comfortable and we think for our partner, oh, he's not going to want to do that,
Yeah.
or he is going to want to do whatever it is. We think for our partner, oh, no, 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 no. Ask. Use your words. We tell it to children all the time. Use your words. I invite adults to tell each other, use your words. And sometimes we have to do a take two,
Yeah.
where,
Yeah.
okay, what you said, and here's what you said, or
Yeah.
here's what I heard. Is that what you meant? And so a lot of times there's clarity, there's clarification that's needed to have that clarity, to be able to have that talk, to be able to laugh, to be able to reminisce about
Oh,
the good times. Because we all have challenges. We absolutely do. Am I immune? Do I feel like I'm inoculated that I now, because I've gone through something so horrific to me, that I'm now inoculated that nothing terrible is ever going to happen to me? No,
no.
absolutely not. However, I am more resilient now. I am better prepared for it now because before betrayal, I thought he'd never. I
Yeah.
was trapped in that mindset of he'd never cheat on me. He'd never do that. He loves me too much to do it. I made all of these associations.
Right.
Mm-mm, no, no,
Yeah.
not anymore. Absolutely not anymore. I took off the rose-colored glasses. I did. I see things for what they are. At times it can be a little challenging for my husband because he'll need to remind me, okay, hold on a second. You're not coaching me. You're not coaching our
Yeah, sure.
relationship.
Yeah.
Take a step back, let's look at this a little bit differently. And there are other times where he'll ask, rightfully so, well, if a couple came to you with this same situation, how would you help them through?
Oh, that's
And
good.
that's very powerful to me. He also has a psychology degree, so it's helpful.
Oh, that helps.
And yes, it absolutely helps, very much so. But with that being said, sometimes you have to inject humor into your relationship. Yeah, humor is good. Sarcasm, I'm a little cautious with And
Yeah.
it kind of depends if the sarcasm is directed towards you or towards a gender. I have
Right.
an issue with that.
Right.
But sarcasm can be a little interesting. Mm,
I'm always wary of the sarcasm because we don't want it to escalate into meanness, right? Like you can joke around, but sarcasm, there is a line, I think. And that, remember, it goes back to what I was saying in the first segment, that you have to respect your partner and remember who they were when you were so intimately in love and you wanted to marry them. You have to remember that for the rest of your life. That's the partner that you chose. Treat them with the same respect you did when you first were with them. You can joke around, but don't criticize, don't undermine them, don't make them feel that smallness that we talked about, right?
exactly.
And that's just being in love and being happy with your spouse and treating them the way you want to be treated and not forget where you came from, right?
Correct. And if your inner critic's voice turns into your spouse,
Right?
that's a really big issue.
That's a big
And that's
red
something
flag.
absolutely. And that needs to be addressed. That's when you need help. And help is fine. Coaching is great
Mhm.
because coaching doesn't have the stigma that sometimes
Yeah.
therapy has.
Yeah.
'Cause therapy identifies the problem. And when people hear, oh, you're in therapy, oh, there must be something wrong with you,
Is that still a stigma? I've heard lots of people I know still go to therapy and they don't mind saying that they do.
which is great. That is so healthy.
Yeah.
And it's really important. And yes, as mental health awareness,
Yeah.
again, the word awareness comes into society much easier.
Mm.
However, when someone has been married for 20 years, their circle
Yeah.
looks at them as successful. Oh, you've been married 20 years, and they honor you for that. And then when they hear that you're going to therapy, again, they could either embrace you or they can pull away from you like, okay, whatever is going on in your world that
Yeah.
you need therapy, I don't want any of that. I don't want
Right.
that spilling out onto me.
But if you're confident enough, as you said, and you'd work on yourself, it's all good, right?
Correct. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Then you'll proudly say, "Well, I've been in therapy for, 12 months or whatever the duration of time
Look
is."
at that. You got
And
it.
look at who I am now. Because a
Yeah.
lot of people around you will absolutely recognize when you are taking care of yourself.
Oh, absolutely. You do transform, don't you? And I would think also your spouse recognizes it, of course. So they're kind of thinking, I got to step up my game. She's trying, she's really trying. I need to try too. Vanessa, I want to ask you just one last thing before we have to break this. You've been so wonderful. You've answered absolutely everything. I really want to go positive. I want to end with a positive note. You've had such a wonderful life with your husband. You've managed to grow this wonderful career and help other people. When you go forward and you're giving positive results to your client, what would you equate the most important? Is it that they try together? Is it that the goal is to stay together? What would you think is the key to success in getting people through all of this?
My barometer,
Yes.
my personal barometer is when they're comfortable in their own skin.
Okay.
When they're comfortable in their own skin, when they can look at themselves in the mirror and recognize how beautiful they absolutely are from the inside out. From the inside out. I'm not talking aesthetically, but the inside out. They're comfortable with who they are. That's my barometer. When I can help clients see who they are, then it just attracts a partner, whether the partner is their existing partner or a new partner.
That is amazing. It was, it's always my pleasure to talk to you. We've done it a couple of times. I have another question for you.
Mhm.
Will you come back and do another episode down the road with us?
Oh, absolutely.
I would love
Absolutely.
it if you came back.
Absolutely. Let's see how this lands for your audience. I'm sure they have lots of
That's
questions,
what
which
I'm
is
exactly
great.
what I'm thinking.
Let's compile the questions and then we'll do a third one and we'll answer those questions because
I still have questions.
conversations, they stimulate. They ruminate in there and allow for you to think long and hard about certain things. And sometimes having someone else's thoughts, oh, it can be powerful. As I mentioned in both part one and two, I've had great mentors. I have great mentors who have said the most profound things. And sometimes we go to courses, you teach courses,
Mhm.
and you give out these nuggets, and certain nuggets land for woman A and doesn't land for woman B, but woman B captures something that woman A didn't get. And then there's woman C who's like, did you hear that? Oh my gosh, I have to write that down. That was so profound. I
Yeah,
am quoting mentors from years ago
yeah.
because what they have said has had such a profound effect on me. And that's what I want. I want to have that profound effect that when someone 5 years from now says, you know what? I listened to this great podcast with Teresa and Vanessa. And Vanessa, yeah, she's got red in her hair and she's got that New York grit, but she said something that was so powerful
That's
that
right.
it just landed right here. And it made me feel. It made me feel. And to this day, I won't forget it. So that feeling that you have becomes the glue to that memory. And hopefully that memory is a good one.
Vanessa, if somebody wants to reach out to you right now, and I'm going to have all your information in the description, so no worries. What's the best place to reach you, though?
Best place to reach me is through my website, and my URL is understandingear.com. And it comes from my favorite quote. The hardest things to say are the most important things to say. They're locked within, not for the want of a teller, but for the want of an understanding ear.
I love
My URL is understandingear.com.
I love that. Well done. You have such a big heart, Vanessa, honestly. I met you. I'm very grateful, by the way. I'm just going to say to Brad Walsh from Empowerography, thank you for introducing me to wonderful Vanessa. You are such a wonderful, wonderful lady. Everyone, this is Vanessa Cardenas. I'm going to make sure all of her information is here in the description. You're going to be able to get a hold of her. If for any reason you cannot reach Vanessa, I'm happy to make sure you get the message over to her. I will do it myself. We're going to have Vanessa back again. If you have questions, my thought is you can send them to me or to Vanessa direct, and we'll have another episode and we'll answer those questions because I actually have some more questions for you, Vanessa. This has been amazing. I'm so very grateful for you, and I'm grateful to call you a friend.
Likewise.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, Vanessa. To everyone else, this is Teresa Aker. You're watching Success Diaries. Do subscribe to my channel. I truly appreciate that. I'm going to have Vanessa's books up here for you so you can go over and purchase them and continue on with her. Thank you again. Have a great day, and I look forward to talking to you soon.